Hello and welcome to the It's Karmic podcast with me, your host, Vika Bradford. I am actually over the moon today for the conversation we're about to have about parasites, energy, emotions, and so much more. So I'm going to just immediately welcome my guest to the show. This, for everyone that hasn't met her yet, this is Dr. Jacqueline Gutierrez. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
So I've been literally anticipating this for so long. Thank you for coming on. And I know this is going to be probably one of the most listened to episodes ever on the podcast.
Yeah, it only took me like 6 or 7 months to schedule this, but
Totally
I
okay.
can't, every
All in
month I was
divine
trying to
timing.
schedule it. But that's what happens when you have a new baby.
100%. 100%. You're a doctor, you have a baby, you have a life. That's we get it here. And you know what? Divine timing. I know there's a reason that it landed when it landed. I know there's a reason you booked it when you booked it. I always trust that it's like if we had done it 6 months ago, it wouldn't have been the same conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just thinking all the things that I've learned since then too. So
Right.
we'll see what comes up today.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. So for you guys listening, Dr. Jacqueline, I don't even know how I stumbled on your page, but I believe it was through when you were doing one of your monthly moon parasite biofield tuning sessions. I don't know where I found you, who linked you, I don't know. And I was like floored. So tell us tell us about your story and what you do so everyone can get a taste of your amazing work.
Okay, so in a nutshell, when my dad was, or I should say when I was 9, my dad died of cancer, and that is probably the beginning of this all, I would think. I don't know. I'm sure you could go back into frequency into past generations and all that, but but that was a big turning point, I think, for myself. I saw him die of cancer at a young age, and it really made me want to live, and it made me see life very differently from a young age. And it's very interesting how different family members can react to a similar situation because the rest of my family is not like me. For me, I was like, I want to live. I want to be healthy. I want to know God. I want to know what the spiritual realm is about and so much more. And so that opened me up to um, I became a Christian at some point, and then I ended up um, I'm like, what do I leave out so that this is not a long story?
It can be a long story. I would
I
completely
know,
be
right?
here for it.
At some point, I found myself, this is funny, I'm jumping into this now, but I found myself in Las Vegas, cocktailing in nightclubs and very unhappy. And I was just like, I'm chasing money. And I had the best cocktail job in Las Vegas and was making all kinds of money at a very young age. And I was just like, this is not it. This is not me. This is not living. And you want to talk about parasitic energy. I was like in the
Oh
heat
my
of it.
gosh.
And then of course, like I said, I had become a Christian and I just knew. I was like, God's like, get out of here.
Hmm.
So anyways, that only lasted a couple years. And thank God. And so I ended up getting out and I felt led to travel around the world and just go on a little adventure. And I found myself in all these different places. And it was very much a healing journey. And I called it my adventure actually. And I
Okay.
literally got rid of all my stuff and put it in storage or left it at my friend's house, sold it, and was just kind of just going where I felt like God was showing me to go. And one of those places that I landed for about 9 weeks was this place called Hippocrates Health Institute. And they taught me so much about detox and they did talk about energy work and that kind of thing. At that point, I was like, I don't know about all this, or I was experiencing it, but I didn't really understand the depth of it like I do now. Now I'm like, oh my God, it's everything. Everything, all our biochemistry is affected by our energetic body. And so it's so much more. So at that point, I was just figuring out how to eat healthy and taking it to the next level and detoxing. And I struggled a lot in my 20s with digestive challenges and skin issues and emotional issues. And There was obviously trauma there because my dad died at a young age, and then there's stuff coming from my mom's side, and my mom's side is just very emotionally like that. And so, at some point, I was just very, very just drained and tired. I wasn't even 30 years old yet, and my hair was falling out, and I had back knee like crazy and digestive challenges, and I'm like, this is not living. And so I had to figure out root causes of that. And I did all these liver cleanses, and I ended up getting in parasite cleansing. I was like, well, there's a reason why all these stones keep coming out because there's parasites. And then now I'm doing all these parasite cleansing, and I'm like, well, there's a reason why there are also all these parasites. And then I figured out there's the toxic element to it. I mean, I knew about toxins, but I didn't understand how toxic I personally was until I did a chemical test and saw some chemicals through the roof. And I'm like, oh, I better start slamming those supplements so I can get rid of those toxins. And then at some point, I'm fast forwarding many years through this, but um, I was standing in front of my mirror. And this is in the middle of when everything's probably still shut down. People were wearing masks and all that garbage.
You can say that
Um,
here.
right? Like all of that nuts.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do we keep passing these parasites? And I'm like having a God moment, like, what is going on? And then it's like sometimes you just need to ask the question, you get the answer. All of a sudden it was like you have to fix the frequency. And that, like I get chills just thinking about
I
that again.
just got chills
Right?
everywhere.
Like I'm like, oh my
Everywhere.
God, is this me or is this like a higher power telling me this, right? Because sometimes you never know. It's so I had already been understood a little bit about frequency, and I had a friend that was doing these biofrequency scans on me, and I actually have a biofrequency machine myself. I just didn't understand to the depth of like what it really means to fix your frequencies and emotionally heal on that level too. And so that led me down the last couple of years of just some deep research and learning new modalities. I just everything I could put my hands on at the time until I got pregnant. I was like, I studied emotion code and body code and biofield tuning, and I ended up upgrading my Zyto software so I can have this. It's kind of almost like a Rife machine. It works with voice perception reframing, and you can use this technology and put your hand on it, and it puts balancing frequencies back into your body as well too. So
Mm.
those are like the core of the frequency work I do. I mean, I still do the detox and lifestyle and all that. I mean, I still understand that we are living a physical experience, but um, once I added this whole other element of energy work into it, it was like, I mean, you want to talk about miracles, signs, and wonders. I mean, sometimes people are so stuck, and I get people that are like, I've tried everything, right?
Hmm.
And then they finally try some of this other energy work, and they're all of a sudden like, oh, I don't have any pain in my hip anymore. I don't, or I feel so much less stressed, and they know all this other stuff. They know how to detox. They know how to get their sleep right and do all the physical things. But yeah, the energetic work and um, I love following you, by the way, because I'm like, how this relates to the universe is a whole nother
Right?
level
It's
beyond my
like
comprehension at this point.
it's everything. Everything is the same, and yet like different expressions. It's just this like ripple. So like I love following you for the same reason of like I get the other dimension of what I'm doing in like this like different form. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, everything in the universe is has a frequency.
Mhm.
And where everything jiggles is what Eileen Day
I
McKissick,
love that.
the lady that wrote biofield tuning or that created biofield tuning, the sound therapy I do. She said that in her book, and I'm like, that's exactly what it is. Everything is vibrating. And
Yeah.
if it's vibrating out of harmony, then now we can have something like parasites overgrowing. And that's only one pathogen. I mean, it's the one that people they love and hate at the same time. It's the one that's
Mhm.
like, oh my God, parasites.
It's just
You
so
can say
intense.
bacteria, right?
I
You can say
know.
bacteria fungus, and it's like some of it will ring a bell with parasites. I have a worm in me. I mean, they're all kind
Mhm.
of parasitic energy, I think, in my opinion.
A
But
100%. 100%. Oh my God. This is like amazing because everything you're saying is me. Like I've been on this journey of healing my body for similar reasons. Like since I was a kid, I had now I realize every symptom of parasites, mold, like all of it since I was a kid, but nobody knew what they were looking for, especially back in the 90s. Like nobody looked at that stuff, right? And now I like see it all, but the journey I've been going on since like 20 what 12 was about approximately when I started my journey. So like over 10 years ago. But like it's like, yeah, I've done everything. I've tried everything. I've parasite cleansed, I've mold removed, I've done the protocols, I've done the cell core. Cell core actually was the best one that I've ever used. But then there's something like where my husband even said it yesterday or the day before, and he was like, what's going on that you're still full of parasites? Like, why? Like something is not right here. And it's what you're saying, it's the frequency. Like my frequency is like, I don't know, giving them a place to gestate, I guess. It's like a good environment for them based on my frequency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I talk about this a lot with my clients and my social media that if we're vibrating in chaos, that's where parasites will like to
Mm.
overgrow. I mean, simple.
My God. And like the world right now, it's the
Mhm.
most chaotic I think any of us have ever experienced.
Yeah.
And that's like a breeding ground for this.
Mhm.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, I have a question that's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg
Mhm.
for emotion trauma and this whole conversation? So it's like, I always see that parasites, these typical pathogens, are usually interrelated to emotional trauma, right? There's typically people who have a lot of overgrowth with this have emotional trauma. Is it a chicken and the egg situation? Is the trauma come first, create the breeding ground for the parasites, the pathogens, or is it like the pathogens are there and they create a breeding ground for trauma? Or is it both?
Oh my gosh. I kind of think it might be a little bit more of the frequency imbalance, the emotional. So the emotional trauma is basically a frequency imbalance.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of think it's more of that
Okay. So the
because
trauma comes and
so
then, oof.
yeah, okay. So the way I'm thinking about it is it goes back to the terrain. I used to do something called live blood analysis where I look at the blood cells under a microscope and you can see how, what's in your blood. So that's the terrain. Um, if you have all kinds of toxins are one thing that can disrupt the terrain, but how you're vibrating your frequency is affecting the voltage of your cells. And so if you, I mean, there's more things that can affect this whole thing, but I think these two things are a lot of the missing link in people's protocols that they're not fully addressing, that are causing their body to still be in this state of chaos.
Mm.
So once they're introduced to something like a parasite, now the parasite's like, oh, party.
Yeah.
I have the perfect place to live. Um,
Hmm.
if their body was not in that state of chaos, if their frequencies were more harmonized, if they're not so toxic, I mean, we can go into deficiencies and other reasons why the body can get imbalanced. But basically, if the body is more balanced, then the parasites are not going to overgrow the fungus, the mold, all that kind of stuff. I've had clients that have mold issues too. Um, and they go into a moldy building and they're instantly out. And
Yeah.
this lady I was working with, she would go to church and she's just like, oh, like I can't handle this. And I'm like, well, how are the other people there handling it? They're like, well, they're doing just fine. Like they're not
Hmm.
having the same reaction. And knowing what I know now, I'm like, well, there's a lot of layers of frequency and trauma imbalance, frequency imbalance, and basically it's trauma or stress in our biofield. That if we just calm the flame down on that and harmonize things, she probably wouldn't be reacting so much to this mold. So like, I kind of think that we just need to like have a meditation moment on that one.
Totally. It's like
Like if you're not full of trauma that's stuck, you're not going to be so reactive to your environment.
100%. It's literally my husband and I are the perfect example. He has like no childhood trauma at all. Bless his soul. And I have like a lot of childhood trauma. And I am the one that has, these, I'll call them issues or these disharmonies, and he like is nothing. Right now we're living in mold, thank God we're getting out soon. And he's totally fine, like absolutely fine, whereas I'm like, I literally can't make it through a day right now without passing
Mm.
out. Like I'm so tired by 11 a.m. like it's brutal, right? And he's just like, yep, we're living in mold. It sucks, but he's not feeling it at all, right?
Wow.
But our histories are so different. Even the food we were raised on, right? Like his mom was the stay-at-home mom. He was homeschooled. The meals were amazing. Food was always like abundantly there. She's the kind of mom that's like homesteading and canning and like has her whole farm. And like my situation was very different. Single mom, didn't have a lot of time. We were poor as hell. There was barely food in the house. Like that, the situations were so different. And it's interesting to see how our bodies react to the world differently based on that.
Wow. Wow. That makes me want to not work, take care of my baby.
Yeah, I mean, like
Oh my
that's the ultimate dream for sure. But she did have 6 kids, so I guess she was a little busy.
Oh my goodness. That yeah, that's
And
I'm
homeschooled them
trying to
all,
figure out how to have one or how to
right?
manage it. I should say I have one
I
now.
know. I know. She had 6 and homeschooled them all. Like it's
Wow,
amazing.
that's amazing. Yeah,
She's
and
she's
that's
formidable.
common nowadays.
Yeah,
I think after the whole pandemic thing, but
it's becoming
back in the
common.
day that like where we grew up, our husbands grew up, that was kind of rare.
Super rare. Yeah, they were a special breed, Christians as well. His dad is I think he's still a minister, and just like they're just so wholesome. So it's such a different way of growing up than I personally experienced, and he just doesn't react to the world in the way I do. Now, our astrology is very different too. He's a lot calmer. His chart is a lot calmer than mine. Mine is very
Mhm.
reactive. Mine's very activating. Mine has a lot of nervous system signatures that I'm like, like you, like I could burn myself out real quick. Whereas he's just like, everything's fine. The world's lovely. Like everything will be all right. And I'm just like, like
Like,
this,
how do you not see it?
right? Yeah. So it's
It's
it's so
crazy.
interesting. It's crazy here. I know he does see that it's crazy at this point,
Yeah.
but it's just interesting the terrain you're speaking of. So okay, this is just so fascinating. Tell us about the biofield tuning, because that's my favorite part of your work ever.
Oh, I would have never imagined myself doing all this stuff. And then tying it into being a Christian again. I mean, then now you look like a
Yeah.
woo-woo.
That's my favorite
I-
part about you.
uh,
I don't think I've ever had a Christian on the show. I just
uh,
like it just because you like typically don't find Christians like that are willing to embrace my type of work. It's becoming more common. I love seeing it, but that was one of my favorite things about you was that you are a devout Christian clearly, and you're willing to dive into the fact that there is energy and that this woo woo stuff isn't here to
eh,
harm us. It's here to work with us, right? It is God.
yeah. So, oh my God, that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole podcast that
I
we're
actually
gonna
think I
have to
need.
do.
I have had a podcast that I stopped it for the last couple of years. I keep feeling like I'm like I need to probably start that again, and I'm like
You
I think
probably
I need
should.
to do a series on tying these worlds together,
Oh my God,
frequency
please do.
and the Bible. I'm like because it's biblical. Like this is how God created the world and the universe. Like everything's just one big energy,
Yeah.
situation here.
Yeah.
So, and then if we can understand how energy works, we can really understand how God operates. And
Mm.
I mean, there's in the Bible, it talks about raising the dead and doing all these miracles, signs, and wonders. And when you understand how energy works, then you can read the Bible with a whole different lens and have that much more of appreciation of like, oh, this is actually what's happening here.
Yeah, and I've heard so many people who, in my world, they'll study, the Bible and astrology, or the Bible and other energetics, and they'll be like, it's not meant to be taken literally. Like this is a text of the soul to understand like how we operate here, and it's like so full of symbology, and people are missing the depth of the readings. My husband, things will like happen because he was raised Christian. Right now we're very much like the universe is God, God is the universe, that's just how we live. But things will come up and he'll think of scripture and he'll be like, that's this. And I'm like, because I didn't read the Bible growing up, right? So I'm like, that's just fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean even Jesus, the three kings when he was born were like
Yeah.
led by a star.
Literally, they were led by
We're
astrology.
following a star.
It's mind blowing when you like get down to the nitty gritty that astrology led them to Jesus.
Yeah. So you were asking about biofield tuning. So how I tie all that together with this. Yeah, waving tuning forks around definitely was not what I thought I'd be like. Just, I mean, the more that I do it, the more I'm like, I need to keep doing this, and need to keep expanding my knowledge on it. Um, Basically, we have this biofield that surrounds every atom, every cell, every molecule, every human being. So around the human being, it's about 5 to 6 feet wide, front and back, like all around us, like one big bubble. It looks like an apple, so they call it a toroid.
Mm.
And from the edge of the field to where we are now is basically a timeline of our life. And the just like a cell has a double layer membrane, the edge of the biofield also has a double layer membrane. And in that double layer membrane, it's from the time we were conceived and then we were in the womb, and then when we were born is the other side of the membrane. So when we're doing biofield tuning, um, we are working with our chakras, which are basically nerve energy centers, and there's a vortex around that spirals like kind of like a martini glass, so it spirals down, and then there's different areas in our body that these chakras are located. So most people are familiar with the main ones, the root, the sacral, the ones along your central channel here. But there's other ones too in your hands, in your knees, in your feet. There's something called an earth star, which is below our feet, and it's a negative charge in our field. And then there's one above the crown chakra, which is called the sun star, and that's a positive charge in our field. And I mean, we're literally like a giant battery if you think about it. And so when the body is stressed, for whatever reason, whether it's past trauma or whether you're going through something right now, the field will actually contract. So when we were doing biofield tuning, the beginning of and there's steps. I'm sure you can like the more that someone does this, you can kind of make it your own. But I studied with Eileen Day McCusick's program Biofield. If you just go to biofieldtuning.com, it's easy. Um, and she recommends that you move the Earth star down and the Sun star up because it gets that contraction. And when you widen the field, more energy can flow. So I, like you, had dealt with like a lot of chronic fatigue, and I can imagine that if we hung out long enough, I'm like, we're probably a lot alike in some ways.
I think so too.
Like go, 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 and then all of a sudden you're burnt out. I'm like, oh,
Absolutely.
like
Like
take your time to
adrenals just
recoup.
can't.
Right? It's like my mind is willing, but my body just can't keep up anymore.
Exactly. And then you just like kind of die in the bed.
Right. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So yeah, that was me for the last couple of days, but I'm like, okay, I got into nature, I'm good again.
Yeah. It's literally the charger.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and that's like biofilm tuning really gave me actually a more of appreciation for nature because the Earth star is literally your connection with the Earth. The Sun
Mm.
star is literally your connection with the sun. Um, And when you're thinking about being grounded in both areas, it's like you're grounded below and you're grounded above. And I think about it kind of like how a tree is strong. Like our body is going to be stronger, it's going to be more resilient and have more energy. The outer edge of our boundary or of our field is a boundary, but it's also connected in our central channel so that what goes through your chakras. And so the stronger a central channel, the stronger the outer edge of your field, and therefore you have stronger boundaries. So let's tie this all in the parasites. If you have stronger boundaries to the world, to evil, basically, if you want to think about like that negative energy, like that outer edge of your field is going to be that negative energy is not going to bother you as badly. So you're not going to be able to grow parasites and overgrow candida and fungus and mold and bacteria and all that as well, because your body is just going to be more harmonized and more at peace.
Mm.
So that's kind of that idea. You can go into like talking about like the sacral chakra that's right underneath the belly button a couple inches, and we have chakras in the front and the back. And that chakra, that I was literally just I met this guy when I was walking my dog today, and he was talking about how he has all this pain in the back, in his lower back, and he had to take time off of work. This literally just happened today. And I was like, oh my God, if I could just tell you
All the things.
stories that I have about that back sacral chakra, doing some tunings on that.
Mm.
I've seen people get out of lower back pain or hip pain, actually, I should say, that was related to that. But lower back, it could be the same idea. It can get just super jammed up. And on the in general, it has to do with pleasure, intimacy, receiving money. And so if people have any issues with those kind of emotions, any trauma related to those kind of emotions, you can have lower back pain, you can have hip pain on whatever side. There's emotions on both sides too. That could be a little bit more on for both of those. Um, and then the front, people could have a lot of issues with their lower GI tract. So that's where parasites and all those other types of candida and things might start to grow as well too. When I started to learn about that, I was like, well, that explains all the parasites I personally had and the money challenges and relationship challenges. I mean, so much is in that sacral chakra. Um, I think that any chakra out of balance really can probably create a situation where parasites overgrow, though, because what's really happening is that your cells are you're affecting the voltage in your cells. So if you don't have the right voltage in your cells, then toxins can't escape and nutrients can't get in. So that can be a place where now issues start to happen. You might start to have more. Now we're exposed to toxin in the environment of some sort, and which is very easy, obviously, for various reasons.
Yeah.
And that's where the toxins are like to congregate, and then pathogens will overgrow. So
Wow. It's
yeah,
wild how it all interconnects so much, like from physical, like what you know what we always say, it's physical, like body, mind, soul. It really actually is. Like it's all the things, like the frequency of the soul, the body, the energy. Like you can't separate them.
yeah, yeah. So like I've had people come to me and they're like, what if I just did a parasite cleanse? Like, or just wanted to address the parasites? Would you basically charge less or whatever for your consultation? Literally, someone this week asked me that. I was like, you can't like not look at the whole person. You
Yeah.
can't just say, oh, I'm gonna, blast a parasite with these herbs. Like, I actually used to work at Cellcore. Um,
Oh, amazing.
yeah, I used to work there, so I got heavily trained on this stuff.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
we parted our ways, and I use other things at this point now, but. Um, I um why did I mention that? Oh, because this lady was like, "Oh, I, was looking to sell core and what if I just did the parasite stuff?" And I'm like, you can't like not think about the energetic body or you can't not think about these toxins or the mold or these other issues. Maybe it's your sleep. Like if you're, that's been my hardest thing since having a baby. I'm like, I'm doing the things except not sleeping well.
Right, which is huge. Like, that was one thing for me when I work with one of my dear friends. She does traditional Chinese medicine. And so when she was kind of diving into my stuff, she was like, "Are you sleeping?" And I was like, "No, I wake up like 45 times a night." And she's like we got to get this under control, right? Because if we don't get your sleep under control, like the whole system can't function. And that's just one layer. So the fact that you're not sleeping, it's huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely thrown me out of balance.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I mean, it's worth having a baby, and I think I
100%.
would do it again, but
Yeah, you're beautiful little baby.
hopefully the next one might sleep a little more. I don't know. He wants to get up and nurse, and I'm like, okay, all right. It's not as bad now. It's really not. I think the first couple months are definitely the worst.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and but you just have to know that if you go through any type of stress, including that, you have to supplement yourself. I mean, that's where you can really get deficient, and that's the physical part of this. So I've done energy work has been huge for me postpartum. I ended up getting a business coach with biofield tuning, and it was great. Like, part of the reason I signed up is because I was like, oh, I get all these free biofield, not free, but like it comes with a program, all these sessions. I'm like, okay, sign me up. So I just sat there and just soaked in sound,
I love
sound
that.
frequency, and um, it really was, it was really good. It was adjustment for me to become a mom. I didn't know what I was getting my hands into and the identity crisis that you could have.
I can only imagine.
So
Literally.
biofilm duty was really helpful with that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you might need extra vitamin C, you might need extra. I take a uterus glandular here and there for boost my progesterone and several other things. I've had to do parasite cleansing or not full on parasite cleansing because I'm nursing, but
Yeah.
I've taken some here and there as I've needed them, the herbs, and I've taken binders, and I've done all the physical things too. So
Yeah. So it really is that blend of like everything. But when we get down to the base of it, you could do as much physical as you want. If you're not working on the energetics, like it's just going to keep repeating, right?
yeah. Yeah, and then now I want to throw this back on you. Let's talk about how this relates to the universe, because I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh.
if I was thinking about that, I bet that would take a lot more,
Yeah.
take this to a whole nother level.
It does. It really does. Like, so whenever I'm looking at charts, and it's funny that we're having this conversation today, all in divine timing, because I was literally sitting on the couch today and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to become a medical astrologer. Like, it's been on my mind for so long, like years. And today it just hit me where I don't know what I was looking at. I probably was just obsessing about parasites because that's where I'm at today. And I was like, I'm becoming a medical astrologer. So now we're having this conversation as I'm literally going to take this dive that'll be like probably so long. Like it'll be a long journey to really master that. But yeah, like whenever I see someone with like a high Scorpio signature, I'm automatically interested in what's going on in their intestines, in their genitals. Like there's always going to be a question around like, how you doing down there? That's like a big Scorpio signature area that I can go to with some clients, and some clients we just go into the emotional stuff. But there's everyone who has a high Scorpio signature, eighth house signature, or Pluto signature in their chart has issues with excretion in some form, whether it's parasites, whether it's mold, whether it's candida, whether it's just inflammation, whether it's trauma. It might not even, sometimes it's not even trauma from this life. Like there's trauma down there and they're like, nothing's ever happened to me. And I'm like, and then I'll look at the chart and I'll be like, okay, but it did in lives previous, right? In
Mhm.
whether it's dimensions or whatever it is, I don't know. But the trauma like is there. It's just in this, they're like, I don't even have it in this life. I'm like, that's the fun part of this. And then the other thing, I was telling you this as before we got on the call, was that I recently bought some medical astrology books and I immediately go to Virgo because I have a lot of Virgo in my chart. And worms, intestinal worms, everything that I looked at for Virgo was intestinal worms. So this is something I have noticed about my high Virgo sixth house mercurial people. And this was the nervous system thing I was talking about. Mercurial people have nervous system issues. Now
Mm.
we're seeing when someone has a nervous system issue, they might be more prone to having a chaotic frequency, as you mentioned. Oh, now the parasites have a breeding ground, and Virgo really rules the stomach area and then intestine, the upper GI tract, essentially. And there's such a link between Virgos and just illness in general and health stuff, because they're meant to be focusing on that stuff. And I think it's because they're meant to focus on it that they actually have to experience it.
Very interesting.
Right. And it's fascinating. Every Virgo, sixth house, high mercurial person I come into, I'm like, hi, how's your nervous system? And they're like, oh, I'm shot. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even make it through a day. And I'm like, okay. Like, we need to figure out what's going on here. And from my own experience and the Virgos I know, yeah, parasites.
Wow. Yeah, the nervous system is exactly what I always talk about with all this frequency stuff. Um, it's really difficult to address your nervous system if you're not addressing the frequency, because that's what's making your nervous system out of whack in general.
Literally. Yeah, I remember I
Mm.
did I did my sound alchemy training 2019. So it was like bowls and drums, and we learned about, the different binaural frequencies and the states you can get into, like the theta, the delta, the beta. It was mind-blowing. One of honestly the best certifications I've ever done, because sound, I really do believe, is one of the true healers of the future. Like I think
Yeah.
it's going to be everywhere. And in those sessions, so it was, I don't remember how many days it was, but every day we would do 2 sound baths. And I came out of that like a different human. The trauma I felt released from my body during those sessions, like each day I could feel myself like transforming into a different version of myself, a calmer version of myself. And it lasted for months, this like calm just from the bowls.
Wow.
It was
Oh,
wild.
love it. Yeah, I love all forms of sound therapy. I got into biofield tuning after um, really loving singing bowls. And I was looking into that and thinking, oh, maybe I'll get some singing bowls and do this. I think I was just thinking, oh, I'll just do it for fun or have it around. Just very drawn to the bowls. And then I started doing some research and then I learned about biofield tuning. I had no idea what this was. And literally within that month, I'm buying a whole set of forks and
I love
engaging
it.
investing into this program. I actually had to do some emotion work so I could pull the trigger on actually doing it because I mean it was kind of I mean it was enough for me to be like in terms of expense to be like should I do this or not?
That's literally me every day. The tuning forks were my favorite beside the drum, which I did
Yeah.
buy myself a drum. Oh, sorry, I almost lost my voice there.
Mm.
I did buy myself a drum, but the tuning forks were actually my favorite tool there beside the drum. And I honestly, I will say once a month, I put them in my cart, the tuning forks, the planetary tuning forks. I put them in my cart and I sit there and I sit there and I sit there and then I walk away every month for the last 4 years.
Oh my
So
God.
you
You maybe
saying you had to
should do
do,
some emotion work on yourself on that.
you just blew my mind. I'm like, oh, is that what needs to happen here? Because like I sit there and I stare and I'm like,
It's
and
so
then I
funny
just
you
walk
have the
away.
same experience. So I'm at that point I was doing emotion code and so I was like, why can't I pull the trigger on this? And so I pulled out my chart of emotions. I was like, all right, do I have any emotional imbalances related to this? And it was just two things. I don't even remember what it was, but I literally released them and I'm like, okay, here we go.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know it was. I couldn't believe how I finally felt like, oh, I can move forward. I can do it. Like there's a reason. I don't have to know the reason. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but
That's wild. It like that just shows you right there, like how quickly you shifted your frequency.
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even with the motion code, I mean, there's no sound. You're muscle testing up a chart of emotions, and body code takes it another level where you're looking for other energetic imbalances. I kind of think though that like if you release a certain amount of emotion, you're probably making the equal of some of these other things. Like if you find a parasite energy and body code that maybe it might be like I don't know 20 emotions or something. Um, but I forgot what I was mentioning, the emotion code. But yeah, even without sound, it's like, I mean, this is just how energy works. I do this all
Mhm.
remotely. And what I was going to mention is that I saw this guy almost die before my eyes a couple years ago when I worked at Cellcore.
Wow.
I went on a work trip with them and we're going to have this big seminar. And the owners are like, oh, we're going to go on a rafting trip the day before
Oh my
or
goodness.
either a day or two before the seminar. I'm like, I don't think this sounds like a good idea. Like the whole time I was like, I don't know about this. And I think I was the only one that was like, I don't know. And anyways, I finally was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I went on this rafting trip and this guy, there was a part where we stopped on this trip and they were swinging off of like a rope that was tied to a tree into this river. And I'm like, this is like not a good idea. Like, I don't know this either. So I'm sitting like far in the back of these rafts and then they start trying to do flips into the river. And I'm
Oh
like,
no.
okay. So this guy, he ended up getting stuck he tried to flip and he got caught and in the rope and he landed on rocks because he didn't get into the river. So he kind of swung back and so he fell on the rocks. And I'm like, well, talk about trauma. I mean, just hearing that
Uh-huh.
is traumatizing.
Seriously.
So the whole time I was like, I knew this was a bad idea. Luckily, we had all these doctors near us, and then right across the river, there was someone that had an ice pack. And anyways, they rushed into the hospital. But 9 months or so later, once I was just barely tapping my feet in the water of frequency work, and this guy sees that I just put it out there on social media, like, hey, I'm doing some free sessions to practice this, and he was like, hey, I'm interested, and so I released three emotions, just three emotions. And mind you, I'm new at this. I don't know what I'm doing probably at that point, not to the extent that I know now. And he was like, moving around. Because I'm on Zoom. He's like moving around. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, Jacqueline, I have to tell you. So he stops me in the middle of what I'm doing, and he's like, I had this pain ever since that trip. And mind you, he knows all the best chiropractors and functional medicine people and all the people that know all the tricks of the trade in holistic medicine. I released three trapped emotions, and this pain that he was experiencing ever since then that did not go away with all these other treatments went away. And I was like,
Wow.
that is crazy. And I
That's
kept following
insane.
up with him. It's been several years now, and it's gone. It's still gone.
Wow.
I just, it blows my mind. I mean, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a believer in this now.
100%. That'll solidify it.
Yeah,
Wow. That's amazing. It
yeah,
just like goes to show you how this can, like, it's real. It works. It's not woo woo. It's like we are all energy.
yeah. And I've seen several things since then to make me realize that something's really happening here. But it never ceases to amaze me that something happens. Like I will always still be surprised, like, oh, it worked.
Honestly, I'm the same with astrology. I'll go through a transit. Sometimes I don't even notice what I'm going through. And then months later, I'll look and I'll be like, oh shit, like that, what? And it'll blow my mind like how spot on the transit was. And I didn't even know, like, I didn't even think to look at my chart. And it's exactly verbatim, like when I'm reading about like what that specific transit means or something, like that's exactly what happened in my life. And it surprised me. I'm like, why does this surprise you? You literally do this for a living, but it does every time.
What's a transit?
So transit is when something in the sky that's moving right now activates something in your chart. So like if something came
Mhm.
along and like say Saturn in the sky came along and activated your sun, there would be a big moment of like you having probably realizing your worth, realizing responsibility. It'd be like this maturing moment where you kind of feel like this pressure to get your shit together, but then you come out of it and you're like, oh, I feel like so much more responsible all of a sudden. So when the sky interacts with your birth chart, you change and evolve and grow. And it's
Hmm.
probably one of my favorite things to work with.
So when you see these things in people's charts, what happens after? Is it more of like, okay, now this is how you take responsibility in the best way, or
Yeah. So usually it's kind of like, yeah, like I like to like think of them as this is how I see it. I see it as like we're up in wherever and we choose our birth chart because we're like, okay, this is what I want to go through. And these transits are going to happen. And so when they happen, I'm going to go through this soul evolution. It's like what I see in my mind. When I get up there, I'll figure out if I'm right or not.
right,
But
right?
right, I'm like, I don't know, but this is what I
No
see.
one really knows. It's like
No
even me
one
as,
knows.
as a Christian, I'm like, I don't know until we die, really, right?
That's
But
literally the best way to be is like people that ask me, I'm like, I don't actually know. I'm like literally just operating on the downloads I get and like
right,
we'll find out when we pass. That's it.
yeah.
And I won't be able to come back and tell you. So, right.
How
But
will
like
we?
with these transits, like these are it's almost like checkpoints or soul points of soul lessons you want to go through. So there's really difficult ones and then there's beautiful ones. And each one offers an opportunity of growth in some way based on the planetary frequency, the sign, the house, or wherever it's happening. And the point, I think, is to evolve our soul. Now, it doesn't always go that way, right? Like someone who is willing to go into the shadow, do the work, do the emotion work, go like get some damn tuning forks on their body and move this stuff out, right? They're going to evolve. Um, in a more peaceful way, in a more loving way. They're going to do probably the work they intended to do. But someone who doesn't want to do that work can go through a transit and their life can just like stop. The people that end up on the like, the people that are so full of life, so full of like beauty, and then all of a sudden they just stop living. They end up on the couch, they like stop taking care of themselves, they just give up. Usually that's because a massive transit happened in their life that was so radically earth shaking that they were like, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mhm.
So it's like each transit is an opportunity for soul evolution or to completely give up on like
Okay.
what your soul intended to do.
So a transit probably, it sounds like that's when you have a lot of like shaking in your life.
Oh
That's what
yeah,
it
and
sounds
like
like.
some more than others, right?
Yeah.
Like outer planet transit. So I would even say Saturn, even though it's not an outer, it's like just the edge. But Saturn through to Pluto. those transits are going to shake your foundation. Like they're like earthquakes. And those are the ones where you're going to get the trauma that's going to create the breeding ground for the parasites.
Oh my gosh, I have to have you look at my chart one day.
Oh my God, we have to do it like literally any day,
Yeah,
anytime.
yeah. I had someone look at my chart a long time ago, but I don't know. I mean, I wasn't as evolved in understanding energy as much, so I, don't- I think I kind of appreciate it, but not to the level of like what I probably would now. And it would be nice to know how it relates to my life.
We have to do it. I'm actually just so excited to make that happen.
Yeah, I'll do your Bible tuning.
Let's do
We'll-
it. I love trades. I love them so much.
Right,
Anyone
right.
listening, I love trades.
We'll figure out where the parasite energies in your field
We're
and
good.
get
Oh my
that
God.
water.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Oh my gosh. Okay. We've gone through so much today. I'm so excited to share this with my people. I know all my people are gonna be stalking you from now on. They're gonna be obsessed with you. So like before we hop off, do you have one thing you could leave anyone listening with to start this journey? It's a big journey. So like one little thing they could kind of start to look into or do to work with their energy field.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, before you asked me that question, I was thinking about how you took a couple months off of social media. And I was like, I feel like that needs to be said. Something
Like,
about that needs to be said. And I think
right?
it's, our energy is our energy. And if you're feeling drained, if you're feeling tired, I mean, sometimes we just need a break. And
Yeah.
I realize it's become so um loud to me lately how much parasitic energy is in social media. It's
It's,
just like sucks you in and it sucks you dry. Like, I
it
mean, you
literally
let it,
feeds on us.
right?
Yeah.
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 And it
Yeah.
knows what you like, it knows what you need. Like
Hmm.
it's it feels very toxic if you and I'm sure you could probably engage in it in a way that's maybe not as toxic. But I don't know, maybe the message really people need to hear at this point is that maybe you need to take a break from that. Like just get away, get in nature. I can't tell you how revived I feel. Just I mean, I didn't take a whole couple months like you, although it feel just the thought of it sounds amazing.
It was so good, honestly.
Um, yeah, but be more conscious about it, be more mindful. I haven't been spending as much time, although I'm probably gonna record a bunch of reels at this point afterwards now that I'm fixed up here and in a better mindset about the whole thing.
Hmm.
But I think that people can really benefit. A lot of people probably can benefit from being a little bit more intentional about how they utilize it. I mean, are you spending so much time on your social media that you're not taking care of yourself or that you're comparing yourself? I mean, that's is my problem. I'm like,
Yep. Oh,
I
I do it
know
all
it
the time.
still happens, right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so
my business
easy.
could be this. Oh, I could be, why
Right,
aren't I doing that? Oh,
exactly.
look at them living on a mountain. Why don't I just live literally in the forest on a mountain? Like these, yeah, 100%
Yeah.
comparison.
And then we can start engaging another parasitic energy as a
Yeah.
result of that. Like, oh, I gotta work more. I gotta strive. I gotta, like this like hustle, this
Yeah.
anxious feeling to try to live up to the Joneses. And
Yeah.
it's so not healthy. It's so not healthy. It could spiral into so many very unhealthy other parasitic types of energy. And so um I think I'll leave them with that. I mean,
I love
obviously,
that.
I do services and you do
Yes.
services, and all that kind of stuff is very important. I really think that people need to go deep with this stuff, and it doesn't just take one session. It takes a lot.
No,
Like
it's a
we're
commitment.
yeah, we're made of all these different frequencies, and all this stuff can be imbalanced. And but I'm trying to create some new ways of helping clients to get this work done, more of it for a more affordable price, like
Yeah,
creating pre-recorded sessions and things like that. Um, but there is something about one-on-one work too that
there is. There really
you're like,
is.
okay, I have this problem. Okay, let's go right to your field where the problem is versus
Yeah,
having to kind of sift through some of this stuff too.
it's
But
life changing.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, share with us because I know, do you have like, is it a membership that you just started? or the cerebral detox program that you have, because you have a bunch of things going on right now.
Yeah.
And I want my people to be able to work with you. So tell them how they can work with you.
The main detox program I do is called Cerebral Detox, and that is intended to detox your body, your brain, and your biofield. So you're literally your whole being, including your brain. Like I'm very big on
Mm.
people's brains functioning correctly, because how are we gonna have a society without that? And all the
Well, that's
autism
where
and
we are right
dementia
now.
and
Yeah.
anxiety and depression, all the stuff that people go back to their brain and their
Yeah.
nervous system,
Yeah.
is just really plaguing society. So that is more of the detox part of it. And then my other service, the emotional wellness cleanse, is where I'll do some of those other frequency work, the biofield tuning, the Cyto Evox or emotion body code. And um, I tend to take people on with the cerebral detox program first and start to peel layers of the physical stuff, and alongside it I'll add on the frequency work. But sometimes people will come on and just do the frequency work, and usually at some point I'm like, okay, we got to look at this other stuff
Yeah.
because we have to look at the whole being, I mean, if you want to really be the most healthiest. So
Yeah, it's the whole picture. I love that so much. Okay, so before we jump off, share with everyone where they can find you.
the main program you can find is cerebraldetox.com. My website is thewellnesstrinity.com. And if you look up the Wellness Trinity on Instagram, is one of my favorite places to hang out
I love your
when I'm not
Instagram.
attached to it, when I'm not in that parasitic energy.
Yep.
So I have the underscores in between the two words, so the underscore wellness underscore Trinity. I have a YouTube channel too, the Wellness Trinity. I'm trying to get a little bit more active again on it. Again, I had to kind of prioritize things when I had the baby, but
Yeah.
my intention is to start putting some more long form content up there and having a lot more education. And there's a lot of stuff, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff on there already. I have
Yeah.
some of the
I was
most
looking at it
amazing,
today.
yeah, some of the most amazing interviews with top-notch doctors and practitioners on that. Um, but I want to go a lot more into the frequency on that channel as well too. So in God's timing, it will happen.
It's so needed, but yeah, exactly. Divine timing, right? Just like this conversation was divine timing.
Right?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. This is amazing. I will share all of your links in the show notes. So everyone listening, follow Dr. Jacqueline. You'll be obsessed. B, just go down the rabbit hole of her work. If this episode excited you, I know it does because my people are as obsessed with this stuff as I am. So it's going to blow everyone away, which is why I knew I had to have you on here. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge, and you're just a gift to this world. I hope you know that.
Oh, that gave me chills. Thank you. I appreciate
Well,
that. You too, as well. I can't wait to
thank
chat with
you.
you more.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna do birth chart biotube fielding. It's gonna be amazing. All right. So for everyone listening, go find Dr. Jacqueline, and thank you guys for connecting in today. And until the next episode, I am sending you lots of love.